Welcome to Konfidence with Katheleen, hosted by me, Kathleen Diggle. Hey, welcome everyone. Today I'm with Dr. Nicole. Thank you to accept to be here to do that podcast with me. And I ask you to come because I'm feeling there's with the horses you do a lot. And I'm feeling sometimes people forget to work with the horse with a chiro because you are a chiro. But before we start, I will have a lot of questions. Don't worry. Can you talk about you a little bit, where you are and what is your company and what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Nicole. I have Alps Chiropractic. So I have an office in Rio Vista, Texas. So it's in between Cleburne and Waco, pretty much. I used to just travel full time and just working on animals, but now I have a human office and then do animals as well. So lots of horses, lots of dogs, lots of stock show animals. I went to school at Parker. It's where I got my doctorate. It was in Dallas at Parker University. I was in the Army. I was a medic in the Army. Did that before I got my doctorates. And then now I just love treating people.
Yeah. And because what is fun with you, and you're really good with dogs too. I really enjoy because you help a lot the dogs. It's crazy. We don't think about it, but very often an adjustment on the dogs really can help them. And you have some kind of dogs that you prefer a little bit too.
I definitely prefer dachshunds. They're my favorite, but they're very prone to disc disease, which can cause paralysis. So a lot of times vets will just say to put them down and we can bring them back walking. For the most part, I've brought lots of dogs back.
And how many times or whatever you suggest for, if we will talk about the horse after, but on dogs, what do you suggest that it's good for them or we can do on them?
It depends what's going on. Like if you're talking about like a disc dog, it's a lot. It's like normally if I can see them once a day for like about a week, we can make a huge difference. Go from non-walking to walking. If you're talking about like a maintenance, wanting to keep your dog adjusted, normally it's like every 6 months, get them adjusted, and they seem to do really well. I had a dog that came in, a German Shepherd. They had him scheduled to put down. And one adjustment, he was able to hike his leg again. He was able to get up and down. He was getting stuck laying down. He couldn't get up. And so they brought him in, adjusted him, and it was over a year ago. And he is still doing so, and all he needed was an adjustment.
So that's crazy. Do you suggest to do some kind of exercise with the dogs or not really because they run everywhere or things like that?
No, it's good to do exercise. Are you talking about in just like general?
Oh, yeah, in general. Or I know for the dust you have some exercise too.
Yeah, no, in general, they need to move. Dogs are meant to move. They're meant to be pack animals and they travel. So they're not meant to be sedentary. So it's just like us. Like when we sit and we don't move, that's when stuff starts to break down. So that same concept, dogs need to go. And we used to work a lot together, a little bit less because you travel less and I travel less too. But we did a lot of horses together. So what do you like about horses to work on them too? So horses, that's what got me started in chiropractic. So that's where the name Alps came from. So in 7th grade, I had a horse I had gotten from the guys at the barn, and he was very aggressive. And they had told my parents, do not let her have him. He's too aggressive. He's going to hurt her. Well, we got him adjusted, and his whole demeanor changed. And we still have him. He's 25 years old now.
Wow.
But his registered name was Alps. And so that's what made me want to do chiropractic, was getting him adjusted and it changing his life. So that's what got me into it, and that's why I love them so much. My passion is definitely horses.
Yeah, so. I know. And you are pretty good too of doing it. Do you travel now sometimes too? Yes, to go.
Yeah, so the office is open Monday through Thursday. I have another doctor. So I had gotten hurt 2 years ago. Then I just had a baby. And so I had another doctor come on with me, Dr. Keaton Perry. And so we're trying to open the office together. And then that way one of us can be gone more. But I do haul-ins at my house on Wednesdays, and then on Fridays we're both adjusting, and then pretty much every weekend we're somewhere adjusting.
Okay. Can you talk about your approach with a horse? You know, a horse that is sore or not. So what is your approach with a horse?
So I'm going to do head to tail. So even if you bring me your horse and you say, hey, its neck is sore, I have people tell me that all the time. Hey, I just need to adjust their neck. Well, just like with you can have primary and secondary things that are out. So like your neck is sore, but it might be coming from the upper back. So I will see the whole horse. So I like to start at the pole, and then I will work my way down, neck, shoulders, back, hips, legs. I mean, because you don't know what is compensating. You know, like if it, a lot of times you'll see even when you go to the vet, their hocks are sore and then they're sore in their lumbar. So I feel like you can't just spot check on a horse. So I would definitely take our time, address the whole horse to try to figure out what's going on.
And I remember it's you because I like when I work with you, you know, I was explaining you what I was feeling on, you know, on the horse and what the horse, and then you were working on them, but you explained me a lot about the pelvis, you know, the rotation about the pelvis and how it affects a lot of barrel horses. Can you explain us that a little bit?
So the biggest thing I see with barrel horses and them having issues is like coming around the barrel and driving that inside hind leg up under them. So when the pelvis, you have ilium, so like this part of it, and then you have your sacrum, and that makes up your SI joint. So then the pelvis moves like this, and sacrum will move like that. Well, most of the time on a horse, you're going to have an anterior tilt because of the way that the body is already, the angle of the pelvis. So it can go posterior, but for the majority, it'll go anterior. And when that sacrum also goes with it, it restricts. There's just not that motion. They don't have any kind of range of motion to bring that hind leg up underneath them. And so that, if we can fix that, almost, I want to say like 95% of the time when I find that subluxation, that person, and I'll ask them, and they'll come back and they'll be like, hey, that was it. They can drive up under them again. But what you were talking about as far as explaining and working with you, a cool story, I don't know if you remember this, was at BBR one year. I had a horse. This girl was bringing it TMJ problems, gone to all the vets, all the things. They brought it every day, and we just kept working on it, It kept shaking its head. And I was like, okay, this was like the first year I had met you. And I said, this might sound crazy, but there's a lady here. Would you mind her coming to talk? And I had explained to him there's a theory called Lovett Brothers, where like occiput and sacrum coordinate, and then C1 in your lumbar, and it goes down like that. Anyway, so you came over there. They said, yes, that's okay. So you came over there, and I adjusted the pelvis, and you said, oh, it let go in his jaw. And I was like, what? Like, you know, like that's what I had just said to them. Like, hey, it could be, you know, you would just keep looking at the TMJ and it's not fixing your problem. And then you were just like, hey, when you adjusted that pelvis, it let go in his jaw. And then after that, he stopped shaking his head. It was the most amazing thing. And that horse kept coming towards you too. So it was really cool. Like he just kept gravitating towards you like, hey, tell them, you know,
tell
like
them. I remember. Yeah, I remember that horse. I don't remember what he was doing, but I just remember that. Yeah.
So that was like the coolest story ever. And that was the first year I met you, and I was like, this is awesome. So
yeah, and there's another one too that asked another trouble. I remember, I think it was the diaphragm. You work on that?
I think you're talking about psoas.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, hey, psoas hurts real bad. And like, this horse is not going to let me do it. And you just kept telling me, no, it's here, it's here. And I was like, I don't think we can do it. And you stood there and you put your hand on that horse and like never even moved. It just let me work at psoas.
Yeah, but it was, can you explain what it does on the horse? You know?
So psoas is a hip flexor, and so it's far up in there. And so like on people, we can get to it when people say they get really tight and they're stuck like in this motion, and then when they come up, and you'll feel that, and it'll pull on your lumbar. So it attaches to all 5 lumbar vertebrae, goes through the pelvic girdle, attaches to the femur head. So when it gets tight, it'll create torsion in the lumbar, and it'll create you stuck in like a flexed posture. So the same thing with that horse. We can't get up to its lumbar, but you can get that lower section of the psoas. And so that's why we went up there and worked in that. So it's a major hip flexor.
Okay, so and you can just adjusting it. Do you need to do those things like sometimes maybe more than once? And if it's a lot of muscle memory too over there?
Yeah. So the problem with that is If you can come and get adjusted like immediately when something happens, you can make big changes quickly. The longer you wait, the more inflammation, the more muscle tone. So you sprain your ankle, it hurts really bad, and then you wait and it gets a little bit better and a little bit better. And so then your body starts to compensate for that, right? And then you just kind of get this new normal. So like when people come in and they first get adjusted, they'll tell me, oh, hey, I'm sore everywhere. And then like as you get used to getting adjusted and everything wants to stay in line, then we're not fighting that inflammation and that body's natural like protection where it's trying to tighten up and kind of protect. And so then you'll come in and be like, hey, like C2 is out right here. Like you'll feel what's hurting. So it's the same thing with the animals. So the longer, and they're athletes, they're gonna get sore. What we ask them to do is not natural at all. Horses are meant to go in a straight line. And so we ask them to do all these laterals and stop and turn, and they're gonna get sore. And so the longer you wait, the more we have to backtrack pretty much to make that change. So staying on top of it and a maintenance kind of thing is going to help you a lot in the long run. And it's even help your injections last longer, because injections, you inject when you get inflammation in that joint and then it gets sore, right? And we put cortisone, and most of the time you're putting like an anti-inflammatory, a steroid in there. And so what we're doing when we keep the joint adjusted, you're going to keep motion in it like a machine. If it keeps moving, you don't have to, you let it sit, it starts to rust, and you got to oil it. So your oil is your injection. The adjustment is going to keep it moving. The two together is awesome. And so just keeping that joint open and functioning, it'll make your injections even last a lot longer.
I'm always say sometimes like, yes, the stifle hurt, but it's because the hip is out or the wall bone, or it's something, or the pelvis or whatever. But a lot of people ask me that question, and I can ask it to you. Do you think that it's better to adjust first, then inject, or to really inject first and then adjust? Which one you think that it's the best?
So if you just break down what an adjustment is, it's the restriction of a joint, right? So if your joint is supposed to sit like this in what we call a subluxation, say it's sitting like this, the joint space isn't going to be as large, right? So when you put the bone back where it should go, then you have that larger space. So kind of dependent, like if your horse is on a maintenance schedule or if it's never been adjusted before, I would say adjust it and then go get it injected, because it's going to be pretty sore. If your horse is used to being adjusted, it's used to being worked on, it's had all the things, then inject and then get it adjusted, because you're going to take the inflammation out of the joint, and then we'll adjust it, and the adjustment will hold a lot better.
I'm feeling too, I'm working a lot with Alex too, that she's doing massage, and I'm feeling some time to work on the muscles, to release those muscles to before an adjustment that makes it different, or there's other things. What do you think about it?
Yes. So your three major systems in your body. You got bone, muscle, and nerve, and you're not affecting one without the other. And so there are sometimes horses come to me and I'm like, hey, this horse is way too tight. Like you need to get a massage, because it don't matter. I can move the bone, but the muscle is so dang tight, it's just going to pull right back. And the same thing with people too. So massage is going to make a huge difference. Taking magnesium, anything to get the muscles to relax. The adjustment, so the nervous system runs along the bone, right? So the whole point of our spine is to encase the spinal cord, and then all those nerves come off of there, and then those are what innervate our body. So that controls everything. Well, when a bone gets out of place, puts pressure on the nerve, which makes the muscle get tight. So they all go hand in hand. There's not, I don't think there's one that's more important than the other.
They all
Yes.
work together.
Yep.
Okay. So, but so we talked about before what it's good, or how to do it. But after an adjustment, what do you suggest to do usually?
So I normally on horses would say like 24 hours off, turn them out, let them be a horse, let them move around. Like just like we were talking about with the dogs, horses are meant to move too. So when we lock them up, then they get more of that inflammation as well. So turn them out, let them move around, let them be, and then get back on. But stretching is going to make a big part of that too, because we don't want the muscle tighten back up. Anything you can do as far as like anti-inflammatory is going to help, and then lots of water. So if you have a horse that's real sore, I would say you could give them some electrolytes. Give them some electrolytes, get them to kind of drink some more, and then just let them move.
Okay. And there's different point of view too, so I
Mm-hmm.
want to have yours about the stretching, because there are some people that do some stretching, but for me, what I'm feeling, I'm doing with sometimes what I felt like sometimes they do the stretching without that the horse is not, the muscles are not warm or things like that, and sometimes it's a little bit worse. What do you think?
So even when I was in the army, like the whole static stretch, where like you sit here and you touch your toes, like that's a static stretch. All of that, even if you watch professional sports, NFL, all of that, they don't do static stretches before an exercise or before an event, right? So you want to do stuff to warm up the muscles. So what you're feeling is right on. So like if you're going to go and run on a person, you're going to do high knees, you're going to do lunges, you're going to warm the muscle up in the event or the activity that you're doing, and then you static stretch afterwards. And so what they have found in research is, oh, I got a rubber band on. So it's kind of like a rubber band. So you take a rubber band and you stretch it. So a tendon is supposed to have elasticity. And so you take it and you stretch it like this. Well, when then I go and work, or I go and I have to drive out of a barrel and it doesn't have as much elasticity, right? So you want it to have that stretch. You want it to be able to not be really tight, but you don't do it right before an event, before an activity. You warm up the muscle like you're talking about, and then you static stretch afterwards to get that range of motion. Okay. So you were right on.
So you were going to just walk your horse, make him warm, mm-hmm. and then you can stretch before going in the arena or just after?
I would just after. You just warm the muscle up before you go in.
Mm-hmm. Before you go in, you do like barrel or roping or whatever, mm-hmm. even. And then when you finish, just to make sure to help your horse, mm-hmm. you stretch it.
Yes.
Okay. So that's because I'm feeling sometimes people say, hey, I stretch my horse all the time before going in. But I'm feeling sometimes it doesn't help them necessarily all the time.
And that's even, like I'm saying, in like the NFL, all of that, if you watch, that's what they have found that you have a lower risk of injury without doing static stretching before an activity.
Hey, that's very cool. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure just that, it will help a lot of people, mm-hmm. To know how to work. And do you feel that, we can talk about barrel horse or roping horse or even the cutting or the car horse, do you feel that if you go with the barrel, most of them have almost the same problem, and the cutting, it's more other problems. So did you see that, or in the roping it's the other one? So
yeah, it is more common. You'll see similar injuries. You also see similar subluxations if it's like one rider with multiple horses, and I guess just the way that rider is riding. And then if it comes back to even like chiropractic on yourself, right? So if you get a scale, 2 scales, put them right by each other and put 1 foot on each side, if your hips are off, you'll have more weight on one side. And so you'll see that when you ride your horse too, right? So you're going to have your weight shifted. And then I would love to do like a study where people whose horses duck and see like how far their hips are off. And if we were to adjust them, if that horse would stop ducking just because of how much your weight shifts. But yeah, so you could go on rope horses. I can almost always tell you, hey, this is a head horse or a heel horse just based off of where they're out and where they're sore.
So what is the difference? I'm curious.
So on the heel horses, they're real sore in the lumbar from taking that jerk. You'll see it. When you talk about like breakaway, it's more in that like hawk, lumbar. Not lumbar, hawk and like stifle. You'll see it weird because they actually come all the way back. There's nothing pulling them forward on that. And then on the head horses, I just see all the time in their shoulders and in the wither area and that lower cervical.
Okay. Oh, that's fun. And on cutting horses or cutting?
I don't work on a lot of cutting horses.
You don't have a lot of them? Okay. I'm feeling sometimes their shoulders and the neck, you know. So for me, like when they open like that sometimes, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's my point of view too, but I like to see yours. So, and I agree with you because even I have one trainer that I was working with, and he had a lot of trouble of all his horses, like they were like all on the second barrel, and each time I was like, You didn't
Did
go
you?
to the chiro.
Uh-huh.
Your knee, and it was his knee.
Uh-huh.
So, and he was like, no, I'm not. But it's his problem. As
Yep.
soon as he take care of himself, that fix a lot of
Mhm.
things too. So,
And I feel like we get horse people. I mean, I'm the same way. Like we take care of our animals before we take care of ourselves, and but it translate into your riding. I mean, your neck hurts and you ride around like this. Well, now this shoulder is going to come up and you're going to pull on your horse. Now your horse is going to get sore.
yeah.
So it definitely. I mean, when you talk about like this sounds kind of cliche, but like two hearts being one, like it definitely the two of y'all have to be on the same page,
Mm-hmm.
and that's physically too.
I have one too. I can tell that story that um, she had a lot of issue with her horse and she was trying to fix it, but they cannot find nothing. So she called me, and I start. But then that horse say, yeah, but it's her hip. It's her hip. So, and I didn't put no doubt in it. But that day when I call her, I'm like, okay, I need to explain you something. Your horse talked to me about your hip. It's because you have pain in your hip and you don't move the same. So
Mm-hmm.
he tried to stay under you to protect your hip. So
Uh-huh.
that's why that is not using him and he's not working good and open that rib cage that well because he's afraid you will fall.
Yeah.
So he was trying to stay
with her.
with her, and in the same time, her cue
Mm-hmm.
were completely different. So I'm like, I'm not saying don't take care of your horse, but start with you
Yes.
first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what she did, and she was like, oh yeah, you're right. That hip, it's so sore. So I'm like the shockwave. The magnawave, sorry. She was doing the magnawave
Mm-hmm.
on her horse. I'm like, do it on you first.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you offer both, and I know you're pretty good too on both because I use you a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wait that I cannot walk to go see you, but yeah. So, but you like to work on people too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely my love is definitely animals, but it's like we were talking about. You have to treat both. So I'm
Mhm.
getting more of a love and passion for people having the office open, but I don't think it'll ever change. Like my heart is definitely with the horses.
But in the same time, that will be fun when you can work on the rider
Mm-hmm.
and the horse in the same time
Yes.
and work like everyone as a team and
Yes.
together everyone works good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in the same way too. So I was more like, oh, I'm talking with animals, I don't want to know nothing
Yeah.
about human. But now I understand that in my work, because I can do just one horse at the
Mm-hmm.
time. But now if I can help more people, then I help more horses.
Yes.
So in the same, if owner has
Multiple horses.
multiple horses, and the problem it's the owner, if you fix the
Yeah.
owner,
Mm-hmm.
so
You can help more. Yep.
yeah, that's good. We talk about taking care, going to the vet, to the chiro, but what do you suggest? What you think too that can help the horse to stay adjust better?
Mm-hmm.
Stay in better shape, or what do you suggest, or you think that?
Yeah, saddle fit would be a big one. So if your saddle is not fitting correctly, it's not, I mean, so most of the time it's either gonna be too wide or too narrow, right? And so it's gonna teeter totter on the horse. And you'll even see that when they get adjusted in the subluxation. So you've seen my system, the iPoint system, and
Mhm.
so it'll put everywhere I adjust, I put it in, and you get a copy of it. And when a saddle is not fitting correctly, you'll see it. It'll be bunched up in the withers and bunched up in the lumbar from that saddle teeter tottering on there. So making sure you have a good fitted saddle. Another thing I don't think a lot of people think about is their saddle pad. It doesn't necessarily mean go and buy a new one, but clean your saddle pad. Like it gets the hair bunched up, it gets sweat in there, and then it doesn't function like it's supposed to. It's supposed to be able to kind of move and mold and breathe. And when we get it all full and we never clean them, they stop functioning right. So I know a lot of people are like, well, I bought this saddle, I had it made for this horse, it fits. Well, that's maybe not the case either. Like some days my jeans are kind of tight and some days my jeans fit really good. So it's the same thing with them. You go on the road and they eat really well, or they stop eating, they lose some weight, they gain muscle. So just because your saddle was fitted for them, it doesn't mean a year later it still fits them. And it doesn't mean go buy a new one, but you may have to shim it. You may have to get a different pad. You may have to move the way it sits on there, but making sure that your saddle is fitted correctly is a big thing.
Okay. And what do you think about the different cinch?
So that's kind of a sore subject, I feel like, just because there are so many different things.
Yes.
The biggest thing anatomy wise that I would say, you have your sternum that's under there. Oh, I hit the mic. But you have the sternum that's under there, right? All of the ribs are going to attach to the side of that sternum. Well, most of the ribs attach to the side of that sternum. It's a very strong bone because it has the attachments on both sides. When we tighten our girth, we're putting a little bit of input to it every single time. Well, the thinner your girth is, the more of a direct push you're putting into the side of that sternum. So a wider girth, when it goes across that sternum, it won't pull as hard when you're tightening your girth. So that's a really big thing. If you have sternum issues with your horse, try a wider girth. And then when you do tighten your girth, don't just go and yank it up real tight. Just do small little ones. And then that way you're not, it's almost like you're adjusting it. If you just have a tiny, a thin girth and then just yank on it really hard, you're putting an input into that, an impulse. So wider and then just smaller tugs to get it tight.
Okay. I see too, and it's funny because even this morning I had a horse that I was really feeling like the wethers and the sternum, both. I was on the phone, so we were not together. But it's like if the wethers was out, but the sternum too. Does that make sense? Is that sometimes that things that goes together or not necessarily?
It could.
Okay.
I mean, it's all connected, so this is going to look weird. But so this is the spinous process sticking up. These are the transverse coming out. The ribs attach here. Well, the ribs come up underneath, and then it attaches to the sternum. So those are connected through the rib cage. And so you could even get a rotated rib cage and it would make the whole chest rotate, which might be something that might be of what you were feeling, is that when you actually would go and palpate, that whole rotate. And I will see that a lot on people, kind of. I think it, like, comparing the two makes it more where people can understand if you can feel it on yourself. So rotated rib cage you'll see on people a lot in car wrecks, from the seatbelt pulling them like this. And so it'll create this like torsion in the torso. And so the same thing on the horse, they can get a rotated rib cage. So that might be what you were feeling, the withers going one way and like the sacrum going the other, sternum going the other way.
No, that way. Okay. So, and it's something I can imagine that it's something that can be hard to adjust a little bit.
Yeah, something like that sometimes will take a few adjustments just because it's such a big, you're talking about all those ribs, all those thoracics, you're talking about the sternum. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of muscle tone is really what you're overcoming. So that would be one that you would pair with massage and it would do really, really well.
Really well. Okay. So you said about looking at the saddle, the cinch, but what else do you suggest to do to help your horse?
Yeah, I mean, they're athletes, so keeping them in shape is going to be a big thing. And even like you're talking about bleeders, that's a whole nother thing about just keeping them in shape. Like it'll just go downhill quickly. So what we ask them to do, they need to be in really good shape. I know there's a lot of people, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but like, don't ride for a couple weeks and then go and run them and then wonder why the horse is sore. So you need to keep them in shape. If I have not ran in a while, and if I went to go and run, I'm going to be pretty dang sore. So you got to build it up, and it just that same thing. I mean, you just got to think about yourself. If I'm not going to ask you to go run a marathon and give it, let me get on your back and you go and run and let me kick crap out of your sides and then get mad because you don't win it when I haven't made sure that you stayed in shape. That will also make sure that they hold their adjustment well. It'll make sure that you'll have less injuries. And I mean, you and your horse will get along a lot better too, because they're not going to be so mad that they don't feel good after you wouldn't ask them to run. And then you have less problems, I would say. Like,
yeah, when they are in good shape, I'm feeling you need to, but you keep them Caro and keep the vet and all those things for the maintenance. But like you said, I think that prevent a lot of injury.
Yeah, it wouldn't, even if I could adjust a horse every week, if it wasn't in shape, you're better off making sure your horse is in shape, in my opinion, even as a chiropractor, than making sure they're chiropracted or making sure they get massaged. Your horse, the first thing it needs to be physically fit to do the job you're asking them to do.
Okay, so now you have that platform.
Uh-huh.
You can tell me, like, as a Caro, what will be one thing that you will wish, I don't know, that you can change, or you will wish to say or to share, or be open-minded to someone? What will be, if you have more than one, you can say more than one, but what you would like to change?
So a big thing in the animal chiropractic world right now is just the like liability, the legal part behind it all. So to do animal chiropractic, you have to be a doctor, either in veterinary medicine or human chiropractic. So I know a lot of people get kind of a bad name, or they say that you didn't help my horse, or they hurt my horse. But then if you ask them, okay, were they a doctor? Did they, where did they go to school? How did they learn? They don't know that answer, because there are a lot of lay people out there just adjusting, and they can hurt them. I mean, there is a reason why it is a doctorate, and there's a reason why we have malpractice. So if I'm just given an open, to say it's make sure who you're using has the education and they know what they're doing, and that way you don't end up getting your horse hurt. You're supposed to be a doctor. You can go to the American Veterinary Chiropractic Association. It's a website, and you can look up in your area, and it'll tell you all the people, whether they're vets or they're human chiros, who are in your area adjusting, who are animal chiropractors. So that would be like the one thing I wish people knew the most is not everybody who says they're a chiropractor actually went to school, and some people are just decided they wanted to start adjusting, and they just started adjusting. So that would be my biggest thing as far as like animal chiropractic. And then it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go and spend a bunch of money to make sure that your horse feels good. You can learn how to massage, you can learn how to take care of your horse and stretch your horse, and there's so much that we can do to treat them. They are an animal. I think a lot of people see them as tools, and they're not. They're animals, and they have feelings, they have emotions, and just making sure that we make sure they feel good and put them first over ourselves. So I saw Donna Kay made a post about having to turn out because she drove all that way and the ground wasn't right, and she wasn't risking it for her horse to get hurt. And I just thought, man, if more of us thought that way and didn't see them as a tool, and we took care of them the way that they should be, we wouldn't have as many issues as we do with them.
Okay, so thank you so much. But if someone wants to call you or have an appointment with you, how they can do it?
You can just call me or text me. My number, I don't know if I said my number on here, but
yeah, or they go on
you can go on. I have Facebook or a website. So it's Alps Chiropractic. You can just Google it and it'll pull it up, or go on Facebook, or my phone number's on there. You can call or text. Pretty easy any time of the day.
And I will give all your information under that podcast. So if someone wants to contact you, they can just they will have all the information.
Yeah. Any questions? I'm more than happy to answer.
I thank you so much. I really appreciate that you took all that time to come with me and to help. I hope it will open mind to others too.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Please make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe on all my social media, and don't forget to leave me a review. If you want to learn more about me, visit my website, horseconfidence.com with a K, where you can also order my book.